outstanding skills that I possess is my communication skills. So try to highlight those skills which are related to the job and on a priority basis. The third part you can mention in your answer is about what you have achieved so far in your previous jobs or your previous experience. Sorry. Now, again, when you have read the JD properly and you know what is the requirement of this job, when you mention your achievements or what experience you have, try to match it to the job requirement of this job. So it all has to be, the more you align it with the job you're interviewing for, the more it will appeal to the interviewer, you know, that this is the person we are looking for. So all these points, keep in mind when you prepare for this question. Tell us about yourself. And in the end, you can end the question by again saying something personal about yourself, about your hobbies, that I like to do this sport and all, but keep your answer very brief and to the point. So that was about question, the first question that is usually asked. I have a total of 6 or 7 questions that I will go through. Second question, very important one, and something that people, you know, they're not very confident about talking. I will tell you how to answer that. That question is, tell us about your strengths. And there is a question, tell us about your biggest weakness. So tell us about your strengths. Remember that as I said in the first question's answer, you should mention in 3 to 4 skills. Here you should mention 3 to 4 strengths that you possess. And those strengths can be your skills. Those strengths could be things that you have achieved already in your experience. And those strengths should be that, some of those strengths should be that you have achieved through training, through practice, or through experience. So those are like what you can say is hard skills that you have achieved. Soft skills, of course, we know are like not measurable exactly. Like I say, I have leadership skills, that's soft skills. I have communication, that is soft skills. I have good interpersonal skills, that is soft skills. But hard skills that you learn through training and experience, you should mention amongst your strengths. And as I said, for a detail of how to structure the question, you can watch my YouTube video where there's this question answered. So that's about, tell us about your strengths and tell us about your biggest weakness, or they can ask, tell us about your weaknesses. Now, when preparing for this answer, tell us about your biggest weakness, keep in mind that you are supposed to talk about only one weakness. It is better to mention only one weakness when you're talking about your weakness. Here you have to do the opposite. When you're talking about your skills and strengths, you try to mention and align your skills and strengths to the job requirement of this position. But here, when you mention a weakness, try not to mention a weakness which is closely aligned to this requirement. I hope you understand, you know, like, again, if I'm applying for a job and this is an interview for a position where I'm supposed to communicate and talk to people on a daily basis throughout my 8 or 10 hours of the job. If I'm supposed to talk to people, my communication skills should be my strongest skill. But if you say that I feel nervous talking or interacting with people, that's my weakness, that will be a very negative answer. So there are plenty of other weaknesses that you can mention in reply to this question that may not be related directly to this position. I hope it's making sense, good sense to you so far, Mr. Mohammed. If there is any question, please feel free.
It's all right, because if any job requires a specific skill, if someone answers that this is my weakness, then obviously it is not matching with his objective. Therefore, exactly, he can mention any irrelevant skill, for example, if any job required communication skills, then
Yeah.
he might be mentioning about his shyness. Or
Shyness.
any
I cannot say no to people.
no to people.
You know,
Yeah. So,
things like that.
this,
Okay. So in my YouTube video, in answer to this question, tell us about your biggest weakness, I have actually given on the screen a list of 10 weaknesses that you can choose from. You have to choose only one out of those 10. So I give a list of 10 weaknesses that you can choose from on my YouTube channel. And one last point about selecting the weakness. Which weakness will you select? Try to always mention whether you use the weakness that I tell you about, or you can develop something else from your own. But make sure that this weakness is not part of your character. It is a weakness that can be overcome or that can be reduced through practice or training. Now, I can say my weakness is speaking in front of public speaking or speaking in front of people. Now, this is a weakness that can be overcome by practice. So the interviewer knows that this weakness is not something that is going to stay with you forever. Maybe through training, they can help you to overcome this. All right. And giving the answer about, tell us about your biggest weakness. Again, I must mention for some people that if they plan to say, I don't have any weakness, this is a very negative answer to this question. So everyone has weaknesses. The interviewers, they know they have weaknesses as well. And all of us have weaknesses or areas where we can improve. So take it as an area where you need to improve, and mention an area where you know already that I have this weakness. And in your answer, that reminds me again, in your answer, you must mention, when you break down your answer, you must mention that I am aware of this weakness. And the last part of your answer, after mentioning what the weakness is in the detail, the last part of your answer has to be to tell the interviewer how I plan to overcome this weakness. That is most important in answering this question. The fourth question that I have listed is also quite common, and it's asked by interviewers in most interviews, is why do you want to work for us? Why would you like to work for this company? Anyway, you ask this question. Now, this interview question is so important that a lot of times, in my experience, Mr. Mohammed, a lot of times it has happened that an interviewer, a candidate, might be weak in other areas of the answers. He might not have given very strong answers to questions that we have asked, but when we ask them, why do you want to work for us? They give such a strong answer that it gives us more confidence in hiring that person, because the answers to the other questions can be ignored to a certain level if you are able to give a good, strong answer, as I have given in my example to this question, why do you want to work for us? Now, in answering this question, partly you are supposed to mention that you have researched this company. And in my example answer, another important thing that I mentioned is that you will tell the interviewer that while I'm looking for jobs on social media, different platforms, I made a list of, let's say, 10 companies or 5 companies. I made a list of 5 companies where I want to target my job hunt, looking for the job. And these are companies which I would like to work for. So I must tell you, you tell the interviewer, I must tell you that your company was one of those 5 companies that I targeted. So this is a very strong point that you will tell the interviewer. It will show that you have good sense of preparation and you have a sense of priority, that you have priority in your mind, which companies you would like to work with. And when you say that your company is one of the companies that I would like to work with, it's a very strong point in your favor. There are other points as well, which is given in detail on my YouTube channel. So again, preparation, why do you want to work for us, is very important, and it is a very important question. Another question that is asked usually in interviews is, how would you deal with a difficult customer? Now, this question is asked usually in positions where you deal directly with customers or, outside clients, whether you are working in a sales position or in an office environment or as a receptionist for a company or a customer service representative facing the customer. So this question normally arises when you apply for a position like that. How to answer this question? How would you deal with a difficult customer? In my experience, and this question we used to ask very often because I interviewed for Emirates Airline positions for the frontline staff working at the check-in counters and at the boarding gates. We used to interview people, and this question was very important for us because we want to know what the person has in mind about you will always have angry passengers in front of you. When you're working at the airport, you deal with so many people that you very often you find difficult people in front of you. So we would like to get an idea. So this is a very important question. Break down the answer into certain parts, and I will not be able to recall all the details, but I will be able to tell you some important points related to the different parts of this answer to this question. The first most important part is you should have good listening skills. So you answer to the interviewer that the first thing I would do is to listen to everything that the customer has to say. If you interrupt the customer, he will feel that you're not ready to understand his problem. So listen to everything the customer has to say, maintain your eye contact with the customer, and show interest in his problem. Because, as human beings, when we are in a problem and we have somebody in front of us who we are telling the problem to and who we expect that this person will resolve our issue, will solve the problem, we expect that person to be on our side, to fully understand what we are going through because of this problem or issue. So if you interrupt the customer